Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're looking at something that is honestly absolutely fascinating. We're going to take the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda, specifically looking at its concepts around sun exposure, and we're going to see exactly how it translates directly into the modern language of biology and pathophysiology. It's like a 3,000-year-old puzzle coming together right before our eyes. Okay, let's dive into this. Think about it for a second. Can a 3,000-year-old medical system really explain modern photoaging and thermal stress? I mean, we usually think of these ancient texts as, highly metaphorical. But what if they weren't? What if they were actually describing very precise molecular cascades, just using a completely different vocabulary? Today, we're going to cross-examine these ancient concepts right alongside today's dermatology. And let me tell you, the correlations are just mind-blowing. Here is our quick roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the ancient sun problem, then move into the molecular inflammatory response. After that, we'll cover oxidative stress and damage, followed by systemic burnout and exhaustion, and finally, we'll wrap up with exactly where Ayurveda meets modern science. All right, starting off with part 1, the ancient sun problem. So the core concept we're really anchoring on today is Ati Atap Sevan. In Ayurvedic medicine, this literally translates to excessive exposure to the sun. And what's absolutely crucial here is that it's recognized in these ancient texts as a primary root cause for vitiating, or basically imbalancing the Pitta Dosha. Keep this term in the back of your mind because Ati Atap Sevan is really the catalyst for the entire biological cascade we're about to explore. Now, when Ati Atap Sevan actually happens, Ayurveda states that it creates a Pitta Dosha imbalance. But how exactly is that described? Well, the ancient texts characterize this specific sun-induced imbalance through two main attributes. You've got Ushna, which means heat, and Tikshna, which means sharp or intense qualities. So for literally thousands of years, practitioners knew that spending way too much time in the sun created this hot, sharp disturbance inside the body. Let's see what modern science actually has to say about that. Which brings us to part 2, the molecular inflammatory response. And this brilliantly illustrates the bridge between the two systems. Over in Ayurveda, excessive sun increases the liquidity, or drava, and the heat, ushna, of pitta, and that leads to systemic inflammation and this full body burning sensation. Fast forward to today, and modern science explains this exact same phenomenon through cellular signaling. You see, UV and infrared radiation from the sun trigger an immediate immune response in the skin. This activates interleukin-6 and TNF-α. Those are the exact pro-inflammatory signaling proteins that tell your body to heat up and become inflamed. So that ancient idea of heat and liquidity, it's literally the clinical equivalent of a modern cytokine release. Crazy, right? But it goes even deeper than that. Modern medicine shows us that dermal stress actually induces what we call heat shock proteins. This causes a really intense reaction in your vascular system. We're talking rapid vasodilation, increased capillary permeability, and a super accelerated metabolic rate. Put simply, your blood vessels are widening rapidly to deal with that massive thermal load. And you know what? That perfectly mirrors the concept of Tikshna, that sharp, penetrating behavior of aggravated pitta just flooding the bloodstream. It's different words for the exact same physiological reality. Moving right along to part 3, oxidative stress and damage. Let's move on and see how this builds into basically a biological flowchart of cellular destruction. Step 1, it starts with Pitta Atap, the excessive sun. Step 2, that generates that sharp Tikshna Guna. In modern scientific terms, for step 3, this sharpness manifests as a massive production of reactive oxygen species, or ROS. Moving to step 4, these highly unstable free radicals cause lipid peroxidation, which inevitably leads to step 5, severe tissue damage, or what Ayurveda very simply called daha. Ayurveda explicitly states that the piercing, intense quality of Tikshna targets the dhatus, specifically your blood and skin, resulting in daha, which is a literal burning sensation. Now, let's compare that directly to modern dermatology. Sunlight induces massive amounts of reactive oxygen species, and when your body's natural antioxidant defenses get totally overwhelmed by all that prolonged sun, those free radicals cause lipid peroxidation and severe cellular matrix damage. So that ancient poetic description of pitta burning through your tissue layers, yeah, that is a flawless, spot-on description of free radical damage. And hey, we aren't just drawing loose, fun parallels here. Consider this modern scientific reference from the Journal of Investigative Dermatology. It completely validates the exact cellular damage mechanisms we're talking about today. ROS-mediated tissue degradation is the widely recognized, scientifically proven driver of photoaging and photoinflammation. The biological mechanism hasn't changed at all in thousands of years. Literally, only our tools for observing it have.
All right, on to part 4, systemic burnout and exhaustion.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how thermal stress moves way beyond just skin-deep issues. Ayurveda notes that excessive sun leads to klama, which is this rapid physical exhaustion, along with heightened irritability, sometimes called mental pitta. Have you ever spent a full day out at the beach and just felt completely drained, exhausted, and maybe a little cranky afterward? Well, the modern explanation for that is systemic overdrive. Prolonged heat puts massive stress on your HPA-axis, your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. To cope, your body just spikes its cortisol production, and your heart has to work overtime to divert blood to the skin to cool you down. That ancient concept of klama, it matches acute HPA-axis overdrive perfectly.
And finally, part 5, Ayurveda meets modern science.
So the crucial point is this. Think of this as our ultimate Rosetta Stone. When you read an ancient text talking about a pitta imbalance from the sun, you are literally reading about thermal stress and photoinflammation. The heat and liquidity of Ushna and Drava, that perfectly describes the release of IL-6 and TNF-α cytokines. The piercing intensity of Tikshna translates exactly to reactive oxygen species. The tissue burning of Daha is lipid peroxidation and matrix damage. And that deep, cranky exhaustion of klama, that's your HPA-axis stressing out and spiking your cortisol. It is a brilliant one-to-one mapping of absolute biological reality. Which leaves us with this final thought to wrap up our explainer today. We've basically just bridged a huge gap between a 3,000-year-old medical philosophy and cutting-edge cellular dermatology. When you realize that ancient sages and modern lab researchers are describing the exact same cascade of thermal stress, cytokines, and free radicals, well, how does knowing these molecular mechanics change the way you'll step outside tomorrow? Think about your daily wellness habits and really just the incredible, enduring brilliance of human observation. Thank you so much for joining in on this explainer. I really hope you found this bridge between ancient wisdom and modern science as totally captivating as I did.